Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
And Rachel,
2 certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only 2 best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go. Okay, I just did a really weird move with my face. And you can see that because we're on YouTube. If you don't know that we're on YouTube, that's because you're listening to this on our podcast. So I just want to remind you guys that this is both a podcast available wherever podcasts are downloaded, and we also upload all of our episodes to YouTube.
But although this one in particular, we are actually on video. You can watch us talk to you.
I mean, could you be more fascinated or titillated by our faces right now? I'm not sure how I feel about titillating people's faces. I'm just going to move off of that point real quick. But I will say that, once a month, we do a side chat, which is literally just me, Rachel,
and Kristen,
sitting down, having a conversation with very little plan. All we have is like a vague idea of what we want to talk about, and we just see where it goes. It is supposed to be a clever play on words.
Clarity on fireside chats. You like it?
It's so funny.
I like a good pun.
Well, I came up with it, so I should be, I don't know. I should like it more, but I don't want you guys to think that I think that's the height of my ability to be clever. I think I can do better than that. But yeah, so you can watch this if you're listening to YouTube or listening on the podcast. You can go pause and watch it if you're really inclined,
or if
maybe
you're
just keep listening
on YouTube. Then just know we have a podcast. If you prefer the podcast app,
which I think that you should, but I'm not here to shame you for liking YouTube. And
you can like whatever platform you like.
Well, you can. I'm just more of a podcast person, but I will say this. You're not getting the full experience if you're just finding us on YouTube, because we have a year's worth at this point of episodes from, basically every 2 weeks for a year. So 100 or more episodes that you probably don't have access to, because I've only been uploading the old ones that are like the most popular, the ones I like the best. So you should really be going and listening to our sort of backlogged content if you want the full Clarity on Fire experience. So, okay. Well, those items of import addressed, shall we move on to our
topic of the day?
Which is, Kristen told me she doesn't like this title.
I don't know if I don't like it. I don't know if it's entirely accurate, but we can explain ourselves.
Well, I don't care. I like it, and by the time I actually name it, maybe I'll come up with something better. But here's what I want to call it as of right now. Why positive thinking is mostly bullshit.
Which... yeah. When we explain ourselves, you will know what I'm saying. We're not saying be a negative person. That's not the point of this. Or that positivity is not a really great way of looking at the world.
I'm not saying it's a complete garbage fire. I didn't say that. I just said it was mostly bullshit. That means part of it is legit.
And when we're talking about being positive, we mostly mean when people are like, oh, just be positive, or just see the bright side of things, and they're putting this sunny facade on something that's probably kind of crappy. That's probably why they're saying it, is you're in a kind of crappy situation and they're like, just be positive about it. Just think positive and everything will be better. And we're not about that life.
Yeah, so let's get into it. This has been coming up a lot, which is why I wanted to talk about it. It's been coming up, it's always relevant. This is an evergreen topic. But it's been coming up a lot recently with my clients, people who I think have a very common thread of being self-aware, really conscious, And I mean that not just in the evolved self-aware way. I mean in the thoughtful of their feelings and of other people's feelings. Really sensitive, caring, compassionate type people who are feeling that if they are not thinking positive all the time, or if they ever have a negative thought or an angry thought, or if they're just really sad, that they're doing it wrong. And by it, I mean life, I mean feelings, I mean relationships with other people. They're struggling. And I hate this so much that we have to have a conversation around it. We have to normalize having all the feelings.
Yes, I hear this a lot from people who are getting into this self-awareness, the personal growth journey, or whatever you want to call it.
Whatever the hell you want to call this.
And they start realizing, I'm responsible for my reactions to things, and I have a lot more control over my life than I thought I had, and over my thoughts and my emotions. And so because of that, they feel very empowered for a while. They're like, I can do anything. I can make anything happen in my life. And what tends to happen at that point is when you have a down day or a series of down days, or you're going through something and you're having what you know is probably not the most helpful reaction. You're feeling negative, you're feeling sad, you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling angry. Then, because you know I have control over my thoughts and emotions in my life, now you feel bad for having something that's quote unquote a wrong reaction when you should know better, or that's how it feels. I know better. I have all the tools. I know what I'm capable of. So if I'm not being positive in this moment, that's on me. And so now you're feeling negative, but you're also judging yourself for feeling negative. So you just pile on the negativity and it makes it a million times worse. That is what we are not here for.
Yeah. Okay. So many thoughts about this. Maybe we should have written them down. Whatever. We're gonna fly by the seat of our pants, and you're
coming along.
You're gonna grab onto some belt loops. Just keep your hands in an appropriate position. So what's coming up for me when you say that is that there's this implication, unspoken implication, that positivity is better than negativity, and that, well, that there are certain emotions that are always good, and that there are certain emotions that are always bad. And I want to just stop right here and question the notion that you can label emotions as always good or always bad, and that there are even such a thing as a bad emotion or a good emotion. Okay?
I think if someone in your family dies, then being sad is a very appropriate and very healthy reaction. If you try to pretend like you're not grieving, then that's actually unhealthy. So there are times in your life where being upset or sad or angry are absolutely called for, and the healthiest, and I would even argue the most positive emotion that you can have in that moment, given what's going on.
I think that this implies that, I'm going to just say something kind of controversial. That being happy is always the right response. Well, who says? I think that if, let's say, you get broken up with, and a week later you're feeling guilty that you're not happy, or that you're not joyful, and that you're not, appreciating your life enough, I would say that after a week of being broken up with, if you're actually happy, you are doing something seriously wrong. You're not processing your emotion. You're not allowing yourself to feel what constitutes incredibly normal human experiences like grief, like anger, rage, frustration, even feeling like a victim. It's appropriate to feel victimized sometimes when someone dumps you and your world is kind of upended. That's normal. Anger, frustration is normal. And yet I think we're scared of it.
We are scared of it.
I think that we're scared of I think part of the reason we jump to positivity and we think that happiness and being lighthearted and all of that must always be better is because we are uncomfortable with and afraid of our quote-unquote bad or quote-unquote negative emotions.
Well, and there's kind of a movement within the personal growth world, that's all about positive thinking. And if you just are positive, then everything that you want in life is going to come to you. And sure, okay, great. I am on board with generally trying to view the world from a positive outlook. And I also think what happens is when you try to put that pressure on yourself to be happy all of the time, you don't process real emotions when they come up because you're afraid of anything that's not happiness, because you're thinking, now I'm going to bring all these bad things into my life. And so you shut down all emotions that aren't happiness, or you try to just skim right on past them without exploring and allowing them to express. And then, like I said earlier, you feel so much guilt or pressure to stop feeling those bad emotions right away. And you can't just snap your fingers and not feel grief. You can't just snap your fingers and not feel rage if that's what you're in the middle of. And so you actually prolong the experience of the quote unquote negative emotions by trying to force yourself out of them too soon. This is like, have you ever had the experience of you're just in a crappy mood. You're just having a terrible day. And then maybe someone comes into your office, or maybe you meet the barista at Starbucks and they're like, hi, how are you? Oh my gosh, what a beautiful day. I'm just having the best experience. I just won this prize and I'm my
Stop, I want to kill you.
Oh, don't you want to strangle that person because you are so not there? And them being there is throwing into such contrast how you're feeling. So that's what's happening to you when you try to be the super positive person, but you're not feeling it at all. The attempt feels the same way that being around that uber positive person feels, because you can't access that.
It feels fake.
You're not anywhere close to that, and it makes you feel worse, and you kind of dig in to your negative experience even more.
Or you feel guiltier.
Right.
One way or the other.
Right, exactly. I should be more like that person.
So this is why neither of us likes, and I'm sorry to all of you spiritual people out there, affirmations. I don't like them. Affirmations, for those of you who are like, I've heard that word, but I don't really know what you're talking about. It's kind of like when you stand in, it's like when you say to yourself, or you can kind of, people often do mirror work, which is they stand in front of the mirror and they say things like, you are smart, you are worthy, you are beautiful, you are great, whatever. You just say nice things about yourself, which in theory is a really good thing. There's nothing wrong with wanting to like yourself.
We're all about having a much more self-empowering internal dialogue. Most people are so mean to themselves, so I'm all about you boosting yourself up.
But I think the problem with an affirmation is that if you don't believe it, which I think is the point of saying affirmations, is that you want to believe something that you just don't quite buy into. Like, why would you be saying an affirmation if you 100% bought into it already? Like, why would I be saying, I am confident when I already am confident?
You're like,
it's redundant. I don't need to say that. So the whole premise is that you don't believe it. But I think what happens is that internally you argue with yourself. And you're like, well, no, you're not. Or no, I don't really believe that. And it creates, I think it creates defensiveness within yourself. It creates dissonance within yourself. And here's the kicker. I think it can create guilt and shame.
It does, because you feel like I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah, well, I must be doing it wrong because this isn't working. I'm saying I'm beautiful. I'm saying I'm worthy, but I don't actually feel that way. And now I feel bad that I don't feel that way. So positivity, just for the sake of positivity, is, for lack of a more impressive word, dumb.
Yeah.
Because I'm really getting into the thick of things now, and I'm going to give you some further listening after this, because we have other episodes that will really help you with some of the stuff we're talking about right now. But positivity for the sake of positivity, all it does is suppress and almost disable you from feeling things that might really need to come out, need to be processed. So tears, for example. Have you ever stopped and thought for more than a second, why do tears exist? Like, what is the biological function of crying when you feel happy or crying when you feel sad, more likely. Most of us are crying because we're sad, though happy tears exist too. Why?
There's no physiological reason for your face to get wet.
It doesn't feel like there should be a physiological reason, but there is. Because tears are literally a cleansing agent. They are literally helping release pent up energy. That's what it is. So if you're suppressing, if you're insisting that everything has to be positive and that you should always be trying to think on the bright side and you should always be looking, optimistically at the world, what that does is it often can amputate your ability to process really necessary human emotions like sadness, like grief, like rage, like frustration, which are, again, normal. So many of us are walking around completely emotionally pent up, constipated. We have a whole episode about emotional constipation, which I'll talk more about at the end of this, that you all need to listen to if you're having trouble processing or accessing your emotions. But so many of us are walking around the world emotionally constipated because we don't think it's appropriate to let out feelings that are ugly. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, is that I think what we call negative is often the things that we think are ugly and shameful and vulnerable. Like sadness, like rage, like frustration, like grief, jealousy even, right? Those are all emotions and they're all normal and you should be allowed to feel them. And when you don't get allowed to feel them, you get really suppressed, you get really bottled up. And then, some of you are going to recognize yourselves in this, it has to come out one way or the other. So what'll happen is you'll either be kind of a trigger monster, like you'll get easily triggered around things, or you'll just bottle it up until you explode. Or you'll take it all and kind of like direct it inwardly. So you're constantly mad at yourself, or you're constantly anxious, depressed. I think those are symptoms of not expressing emotion frequently enough, or not allowing yourself to have normal human emotions. And you might even get chronically sick because the stress of never allowing yourself to process or feel certain things, again, the energy has to go somewhere. And sometimes where it goes is literally into your own tissues and starts to eat away at your body till the point where you have a chronic illness or ailment of some kind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about why we do this. I've had a few theories, and you probably have some too. Mm-hmm. First of all, I do think that quote unquote negative emotion does get a bad rep, especially in the personal growth world. We all want to be positive and we want to have great, exciting, empowered lives, and any time where we feel like we're just the victim of the circumstance or we're just in a crappy mood, we feel like maybe we're manifesting bad things into our lives,
or we're not being responsible for ourselves. Like, right. We don't want to blame other people for how we feel. We know that's not right. So we try to take responsibility for how we feel, which is admirable, but again, that's where it goes wrong.
Right. I also think a lot of us have this fear that if we start to go down a negative path, we're going to get stuck there. We're going to be one of those negative, complainy people. And we don't like those people. We don't want to identify with those people. So we don't even want to get close to that, because what if we go down a landslide and we never come back out of it? Which is why I really liked your analogy about tears. Because anyone who's cried, which is everyone listening to this, knows eventually your tears ran out.
Yeah, eventually you just stopped crying.
You didn't keep crying for your whole life. You're not still crying to this day. You've released the emotion, which is physically what those tears are doing. They're releasing the energy and the emotion, and then they stopped. Same with the negative emotional cycle. You will get into it, and then it will stop. But we're afraid in the moment, what if it doesn't stop? Mm-hmm. So I think that's one of the reasons why we avoid it.
Yeah, well, we don't like being out of control.
Yep, that's definitely
being positive is a way to always be in control. Because being positive and optimistic doesn't make you feel like you are tumbling down a hill, going faster and faster and about to crash. Whereas when you're feeling things that are difficult and vulnerable, you do feel like that. And so yeah, it's a control. It's absolutely a control mechanism, for sure.
Yep. I'm sure there's more reasons, but those are some of the most common that I hear all the time, which is why we're so afraid to broach any negative emotion.
Let's also point out that it's also because it's encouraged in our society, often by parents. I'll say this. You may very well identify with having had a parent who was so uncomfortable with your emotions that the parent may have unconsciously, it's probably not intentional, but may have unconsciously shut you down because they didn't know what to do with your feelings, or they had no capacity themselves to handle the complex emotions that were spewing out of you. And so you may have gotten shamed for crying. You may have gotten shamed for having anger or difficult feelings, especially when you were a teenager, when all of us have crazy hormones and our feelings are just like haywire. And so, yeah, sometimes you get shamed or and again, not intentionally often, just people are overwhelmed by other people's emotions. And so they need to make you wrong so that you won't keep doing that and making them uncomfortable or making them feel confused or unsure how to help you. Mm-hmm. I think too, people often say, you should just be positive because they're overwhelmed by your emotional response and they don't know how to fix or help you. So they have to just tell you to be positive because they don't have the ability to get in there and figure it out with you. They don't have the answers and they want to be able to help you. And it frustrates them that they can't.
Ooh, and this is making me think of all of you people pleasers out there. If you are a people pleaser, you often don't want to feel negative and express negativity because you don't want to evoke negativity in other people. And you also never want to make other people feel uncomfortable. And so if you don't ever get angry, then maybe they won't get angry at you.
Yeah.
Or if you don't get upset, then there's not going to be any conflict and you're not going to make anyone else unhappy because you so want to please other people in your life.
Yeah. Which you should recognize as another way of trying to control things.
Yeah. It definitely
to stay
is.
in control.
Mm-hmm.
I want to move on, but I want to just speak a word in case I haven't made enough of a point about this yet, about why ugly emotions are valuable. Like why negativity, quote unquote, or why anger or frustration or rage or sadness or grief or whatever, why that's valuable. Okay, so to me, emotions are only an indicator that you're having some sort of an internal response or story that needs examining. That's it. So jealousy is not just jealousy. Jealousy is usually an indicator that someone has something that you really value and that you want in your life and that you don't feel like you have. And so it's an indicator of, okay, well, what do I need to change potentially? Or what do I need to take responsibility for? Or what could I work toward to help me get to the place where I feel that the values that they're living out are the values I'm getting to live out? It's just a story. It's just an indicator of where, it's a barometric sort of reading of where you stand. And the same thing is true too, often of other feelings like sadness. Well, you're sad for a reason. Sadness doesn't just happen for no reason. Sometimes it's hard to pinpoint the story of why you're sad. But if you're feeling sad, you're allowed to be curious about why, and you're allowed to try to not do something about it like change it because you're uncomfortable with it, but get curious about where is this coming from and why am I feeling like this?
Right. If you're feeling sad, maybe you're not feeling good enough. Yeah. And you need to examine how could I be a little bit gentler with myself in this time when I'm feeling a little bit insecure. Or maybe you're feeling lonely. Yeah. And you're thinking maybe instead of pretending like I don't feel sad, maybe I examine the loneliness. Maybe I just moved to a new place and I don't really have a tribe of people yet.
That's normal.
That is a normal reaction. Or if you're feeling angry, oftentimes anger just means I had a value, someone stepped on my value, or I perceived that they stepped on my value. That's how I interpreted it. And so anger would be an appropriate response if something matters to you and someone just stepped on something that matters to you. It doesn't mean now you can go and be a rage monster to everyone, but it does mean, okay, I'm having this emotion. It's probably for a good reason. Let me look at that value underneath of it and examine how could I maybe put some more boundaries in place so that it doesn't get stepped on in the future. So emotions are really valuable for helping you understand what's going on in your life and what could use a little bit more intentionality, or what you might just have to be okay with for a little while. But it's all valid. Mm-hmm. It's all valid.
I do want to say, though, that you don't always have to know why you're having a certain emotional experience, because sometimes you don't know in the moment. Sometimes it takes a while to look back in hindsight and figure out, oh, that's why I was feeling that way. So I want to transition into kind of the next phase of this conversation, which is, okay, well then if positive thinking all the time isn't the right way to be, then what is, quote unquote, the appropriate response? And then I think there's, on the opposite end of the spectrum, there's another inappropriate response, which is constant negativity and constant indulgence in your emotions. And so we're going to try to figure out how to stay in the middle. But I want to kind of talk about the middle for a second too, right? Does that feel like an appropriate thing to do? Okay.
So you want to describe what it feels like?
Well, what an appropriate response is. I'm, again, like you're seeing, like I don't have cogent thoughts about everything that we're about to say. Yeah, but okay, I do have a thought. Okay. Hold on. What we tell a lot of our clients is that the first assumption, okay, has to be, some of you aren't going to like this. You're going to try to fight me on this. Try. Go ahead. I'm like when you play a video game, I'm like the boss level. Like, it's going to be really hard to beat me. My clients know this. They know that, like, they can try to hit me with stupid things they say about themselves, and I'm just, like, not going to indulge that. So the first place you have to start is by assuming that all of your feelings are valid. Bar none. 100% pass to feel however you need to feel in the moment.
It's okay that I feel how I feel right now. This is an appropriate feeling given my circumstances.
Mm-hmm. That is, I know this is going to be really hard for some of you to accept. You're going to be like, no, it can't possibly be okay for me to feel this jealous, or it can't possibly be okay for me to be this angry. It can't possibly be okay for me to be this sad. Yes, it is. You're going to be like, no, but it's about something stupid. Nope, that's fine. Seriously, this is why it has to be okay. Because if you start out with the assumption that it's not okay, guess what never gets to happen? You never get to process how you're feeling.
Because you're too busy judging how you're feeling.
You're too busy judging it, and you're suppressing it, and you're not allowing that energy to just move up and out of you. Sometimes, I'm telling you, making yourself feel like it's okay, you have permission, it's normal, validating yourself for feeling how you feel will counterintuitively often make the experience so much easier and happen so much quicker. It's over so much quicker because you didn't suppress it. You didn't try to push it down and ignore it. When you allow something into the light of day, often it's gone and done in 10 minutes. Sometimes not. But always, 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 you make it worse when you don't acknowledge it. And in order to acknowledge it, it has to first be normal. It has to be okay. And the reason that I know it's okay is because, like, none of you watching this, I don't think, we are on YouTube, God knows. But none of you are like true blue psychopaths or sociopaths, okay? You're all normal people with normal human emotions, and you're not having crazy thoughts that are so different and so worse and so much meaner and so much nastier. I'm telling you. We've been in the heads now of thousands of people. All of you think the same things. All of you have the same fears. All of you have the same negative things to say about yourself. And all of you are afraid that you're the only one who feels that way.
Or that yours is worse than
that yours is worse than other people's. And I gotta tell you, just trust me on this, you're wrong.
It's not.
You're wrong. Okay, I have a quote that I meant to read about this, but my phone is over there. I'm gonna edit some of this out in the YouTube video, but I'm gonna go get my phone. Do you have anything to say? Just talk to them while I leave.
I do have things to say. So what I do think is a healthy response is first, like you said, first acknowledge that how you feel is okay.
I'm back.
Also acknowledge, like I was saying before, you're not going to feel like this forever. I think that is where a lot of us get stuck, is I feel so jealous. Oh my gosh, what if I'm a jealous person? Or what if I'm going to just be jealous of people for my whole life and I'm never going to get over it? No, you can have an emotion and not be an angry person or not be a depressed person.
Yeah.
You're just having a feeling right now. It's not going to last forever. And that's one part that I want you to remember. It'll actually go faster if you just express it. If you accept it and you just express it, you're going to get stuck there a lot less time.
Our episode about emotional constipation has a lot of suggestions about how to learn how to process and express your emotions, which we're not going to get into right now because we already talked about that for an hour.
Yep.
That was last April, so a year ago. We had an episode called Emotional Constipation with Joanna Platt. It was late April 2018. So if you're on YouTube, it is here. I'll link to it in the episode description. And if you're on the podcast, scroll back through your feed to April 2018 and you will find that and get some really helpful suggestions about how to move through your feelings, how to process them, how to let them out in a way that doesn't totally scare you and make you feel completely out of control. So, okay, this is why I had to go get my phone, because I screenshotted this quote from Instagram. I know, I'm sorry, I'm so basic. I actually have two quotes that I wanted to, so you're going to get both of them. Okay, this comes from someone called Augustine Burroughs. I don't know if I'm supposed to know who that is, but okay, I'm going to read this. Sorry, Augustine. All improvements, transformations, achievements, liberations, everything you want to change about yourself and your life, everything you want to make happen, any obstacle you want to overcome, any crisis you must survive. The prerequisite is being able to allow yourself to feel whatever it is you feel and not pretend to feel something you don't.
Yes.
That is it. That is what I'm trying to say. So he also would agree with me that positive thinking is mostly bullshit. I'm telling you, I don't know who this is, but we are of the same mind on that.
Well, and this actually has a name. It's called emotional or spiritual bypassing.
Yeah.
And it's pretending like the negative, dark underbelly of your life and your emotions don't exist, and just being positive and cheerful all the time.
I have another quote about this.
Is this one also from Instagram?
Yeah. But this is from a really great artist called Mari Andrew on Instagram. You should follow her. I'll link to her Instagram account. She just does really cute drawings on, and I think she has a book too. And anyway, she's just really deep. And she said, true positivity embraces sadness. True joy honors anger. True hope has met suffering. True love acknowledges loneliness. True light is informed by darkness. And she says, think stars at the end of that. Like, true light is informed by darkness. So that's it.
That's good.
That's right. Like, you cannot, as Brene Brown says, and we talk about this in that emotional constipation episode, you cannot selectively numb or choose to feel only certain emotions. If you're only choosing to, if you don't want to feel all the negative stuff, you're actually, here's the biggest irony of all, you're actually amputating your ability to feel true joy and true happiness as well. So whatever positivity you think you're living by being overly optimistic or overly positive or whatever is actually false. It's false positivity. It's not real joy. It's not real happiness, which I think is really heartbreaking, because it's like, in pretending to be positive, what you're doing is you're disallowing yourself from feeling anything, real joy or real sadness. In order to experience real emotion, it has to be okay to experience all of it.
I think we're all so afraid of just the crazy human experience. I mean, part of being human is having emotional highs and lows and going through amazing experiences and absolutely heartbreaking experiences. It's the human experience. We're all terrified of it. And so we all just want to take the easy, happy ride. And that's not what it is to be a human. We experience all of it. And oftentimes you will find that the people who have had some of the worst experiences in the world end up being incredibly happy people later in life because they had so much contrast that they appreciate joyful experiences so much more than the rest of us because they have known the opposite.
Well, and they became more resilient because they learned that they were capable of doing hard things and not dying and not fail, and like temporarily failing, but still getting up and trying again. And they were okay. Yep. And I think, again, positive, being overly positive can be a way to not have to fail. It can be a way to not have to try very hard, or a way to make it okay to not have to engage with the uglier, vulnerable side of life. But in that place, you never really grow, you never really learn, because you're not allowing yourself to develop as a person. In order to develop as a person, you have to experience the ugly stuff. Yeah. You just do. So you kind of get emotionally stunted, I think, too, if you're only being positive. So, okay, another way to engage with, I think, what is an appropriate emotional response, to not think overly positive all the time, is to think of it and to make it okay to have feelings. Because I think that that's what's scariest about this, is you have to think of yourself like a kid. You have to treat yourself like a loving parent or grandparent but raising a kid. You have to think of yourself as the way you would treat a 5-year-old child. You're a version of yourself, if you want to think of, a niece or a nephew or your own child or a friend's kid, someone you love in your life. Think of how you would respond if a 5-year-old was having an angry response or who was sad. Would you shame them for being angry? Would you tell them that to shut up and stop crying? I know some of you were told that as kids, but do you wish that you hadn't been told that? Was that really the right thing to have said to you? I don't think so. I don't think that was productive. I don't think that was healthy. So you have to start responding to yourself the way that you would have wanted someone to respond to you when you were a 5-year-old kid.
Right. I'm thinking of a school-age kid who maybe comes home and they're all upset and they say, I didn't get to play the game I wanted to play at recess. Well, as an adult,
you're like, could be like, freaking who?
Okay, this is not the biggest deal in the world. But to the kid, you have to acknowledge, look, this is not a life-ending, life-altering situation, but they're upset about it. And I want to acknowledge that that's okay to be upset about that. Yeah. You can always play a different game tomorrow. So you would not make that kid feel dumb, even though you knew this isn't the biggest deal. It's going to be, this kid's going to forget about it in an hour. But you would still be compassionate and gentle and understanding. And that would actually help the kid move on more quickly. Right. So if you could treat yourself the same way, then you could move through your emotions a lot more healthy and a lot more quickly.
People, I tell you this, having been in the heads of thousands of people just want to feel that they are normal. They just want to feel that it is okay to have those thoughts. I'm telling you so many, I keep saying, I'm telling you, like you don't believe me. But people say all the time, is it okay that I feel this way? Or is it normal that I have that thought? And I've never said no. I've never once said, you are weird for having had that thought. And honestly, you're going to say, well, you wouldn't actually tell someone that they're weird. No, I wouldn't. But I've never actually thought it. I've never even thought, yeah, you're weird for having that feeling. Never.
It always makes sense.
It always makes sense. So you have to treat yourself that way, with the kindness and the compassion. And this is really what self-love and what true positivity is actually trying to get to, is feeling understood, is making yourself feel liked and loved and accepted. True, fake positive thinking never gets you there, because it bypasses this, which is vulnerably and compassionately telling yourself it is okay to feel how you feel. It is normal. Anyone in your shoes would probably be pissed off right now. And that's okay. So, okay.
We do want to spend a little time.
Yeah, let's wrap up by talking about, well, can I just pose the question that they're going to be, and then you can answer it? Okay. What people are probably going to be saying is, okay, but when does that go too far? Like, sure, it's normal or it's okay to be feeling angry or sad or grieved or whatever, but there comes a point at which this can't possibly be always okay, or it can't always, like, does it go too far? And at what point are you just being too much or too indulgent with yourself?
You have met chronic complainers.
Yeah.
And chronically negative people.
Yes.
And we're not giving you a blanket free pass to be negative all the time and not feel like there's something there. Something worth exploring there. Because there is. Mm-hmm. So, if you find yourself complaining all the time or feeling down in the dumps all the time, then, okay, the first thing I want you to do is acknowledge it's still okay that I feel this way. And there's something going on here.
Right.
There's something I need to look at because I'm not wired to be upset and sad and angry all the time.
No one's wired that way.
Something's causing that in my life.
Yes. So that's really important. That no one is giving you permission to just constantly be a bitch or constantly feel angry. If you are feeling constantly negative, there's a problem. Like, and I don't know what it is, but
there's not a problem with you.
No,
there's just a problem because
with something's going on internally and this could be chemical, it could be thought based, it could be situational, it could be like food induced. Dietary problems can cause
toxins.
It can cause you to feel all sorts of things that
loneliness.
You shouldn't normally be feeling.
Any number of situations within your body or within your experience can be causing this, probably a combination.
Which is why you need, likely at that point, if you resonate with what we just said, you probably need a third party to help you. Mm-hmm. You need a coach, you need a therapist.
You need a nutritionist, maybe.
You need something, because it's not normal, nor should you feel that you have to just be angry all the time, or be sad all the time, or be depressed all the time, or be anxious all the time. What that tells me is that there's something very likely emotionally off or imbalanced, chemically even, within you that just needs addressing. You need someone to help sort through and process how you're feeling at the very least. And you shouldn't be expected to do that all on your own. I honestly don't think any of us should be expected to do that on our own. But especially if you're just feeling like, oh gosh, I'm always struggling to not feel this way. You do not have to keep doing that alone. That is not normal.
No. And I also want to remind you that if what you have been trying to do, because I definitely have clients like this, and we talked a bit about this in our All or Nothing episode with Amy Everhart.
I'll link to that too.
Where if you've been feeling really down and you feel like you should be positive and happy and sunshiny and you don't feel like you can get there, then oftentimes you won't even really try anymore. You'll say, I tried to be positive, and by breakfast, I was already annoyed again. I didn't make it very far, so what's the point? So I want to remind you, like I said before, you cannot jump. If you're down here, you cannot jump all the way up here instantly. No. And if you're going to try, it's just going to make you feel worse, and it's going to make you feel more mired in that lower experience. So if you're down here, don't try to become Susie Sunshine overnight. Instead, I just want you to ask, what would make me feel a teeny tiny bit better than where I'm at?
So this is actually part of what I probably should have talked about earlier, which is, well, no, I think it's fine to talk about it now. When is it okay to take responsibility and to be like, I don't want to feel like this anymore? And then when is it like, am I not allowing myself to feel how I want to feel? That's a hard line to walk between, okay, am I being too self-indulgent? Should I really just like pick myself up by my bootstraps and like just go do the thing? Or should I be allowed to feel how I feel? So Tosha Silver, who we love, we've talked about her ad nauseum. We've had 2 bonus book club episodes about her books, Outrageous Openness and It's Not Your Money. I'll link to both. We're going to have links to a lot of stuff, but that's fine. She says, and I think this all the time, I don't always listen to it, but that's okay. Feel how you need to feel until just before it becomes self-indulgent. And I think that that's such a good mantra because I think we all kind of know what that's like, especially with maybe not feelings, but other things, like having dessert. eat as much dessert as you want until just before it becomes too much. Until you're like, oh, I just overdid it. So,
well, I can tell this for me emotionally when I start to get a little sick of myself. For a while, when you're upset, it actually feels good. And when somebody tries to tell you to be positive, you get frustrated and maybe a little bit defensive because on some level, I deserve to feel this way, or I just do feel this way and I can't stop it right now. But then there gets to be a point where you're kind of annoyed with yourself. For me personally, I just get sick of myself. I'm like, all right, I'm just sick of being in this funk. I'm tired of this. That is when I know I'm about to get into self-indulgence.
Yes.
And that is when I know now it's time for me to start doing something about this. And again, baby steps.
Yes.
Small steps.
I also get to that point, but here's where I've messed up. Is that I've either tried too hard to go in the opposite direction and then crashed. So it's like being depressed and then manic.
Yep.
It's just you need to try to do a bit like, okay, what could I do for 20 minutes that would make me feel a little bit better? And working your way up to a positive momentum rather than trying to just jump from one crazy extreme to another. That's really huge. But another thing I think is that in trying to take responsibility, I'm like, okay, this is enough. You've had enough. Sometimes then I'll make myself feel bad for having felt bad. Know what I mean? Yeah. So, so it's okay. What I'm saying is that it's all okay. If you find, here's where you're really gonna, if you find yourself judging yourself for having feelings, don't judge yourself for judging yourself for having feelings. See what I'm saying? Yeah. Everything has to be okay. So even when you're judging yourself, that has to be okay because that's also normal. Yes. That's also totally normal. Isn't that so annoying that we do this to ourselves? We have these like layers and layers and layers and it's all fine. So when I'm down in the dumps and I'm trying not to be, or I've gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, I need to do something different. I think it's really important to focus on okay, what is the something different? What does it mean to like do something? Because I think what that means when you're ready to do something, when you're ready to not feel like garbage anymore, you have to be able to process that in the right way. So to me, that means, okay, maybe I need to journal a little bit, or maybe I need to go call a friend, or maybe I need to take a walk, or maybe I need to do something that will help work these feelings out of me in some way. So I think that sometimes what we'll do is we'll be in reaction to having, a difficult feeling, we'll go do something that might not be super helpful or productive in an emotional sense. We'll channel that into, well, now I'm going to go start my business because I've been beating myself up and it's just time. And you know what? Maybe that's fine. Maybe you need to go buy a website domain or something. But sometimes what you need to do is more so process the emotion rather than jump straight to hardcore action, if that makes sense. And again, we have a lot of suggestions about how to do that in that emotional constipation episode about how to actually process your feelings. I think that needs to be sort of like the in-between step. Before you go react to how you're feeling and go off and do something, you often need to process the feeling.
Because again, the feeling was coming up for a reason.
Yes.
And you want to get to the bottom of why am I even having this before I go do something arbitrary that may or may not help me move past this feeling.
Right. Which is, in my mind, a great balance between it is you allowing yourself to feel how you feel, but it's also you taking responsibility and not playing the victim for an overly long period of time. Like, you are taking responsibility for how you feel, and you're honoring it and you're processing it without reacting and going off the deep end and going to the opposite end of the spectrum or doing something extreme or, just kind of being reactive in general never helps.
Yep.
So honor your feelings, allow them to flow.
And then take baby steps when you're ready to move through them.
Okay, was that enough? Was that too much? Was that not enough? I think this was fine.
We always err on the side of too much.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, in every way I do. I just can't help it. So we have mentioned a lot of episodes. I will link to all of them, and I'm about to hit you with some more, especially if you are like, I need to learn how to feel my feelings. Like, I need to do this. It's hard for me. Maybe you're an emotionally sensitive person. You have a lot of feelings. If that's the case, check out our side chat from last year. I'll link to it. And I'll also, if you're in the podcast, if you just go to the episode description, I will link to it, but it's more helpful that I'm just going to give you the date so that you can just scroll back on your podcast feed and find it. We have a side chat about how to tell if you're a highly sensitive person. That one's really helpful because most of you highly sensitives have a ton of feelings, and often you feel bad for having the amount of feelings that you do. We have a side chat about people pleasing, how to get over your people pleasing addiction. That's huge too, for reasons we've already mentioned. We have a more recent side chat. Our last side chat, I think, is very relevant to this because it was about what to do when you want to fix people, but you can't. And a lot of the time, the reason you want to fix people is because you're uncomfortable with their feelings or your own.
Maybe you want to fix yourself because you're uncomfortable with your own feelings.
Yeah.
The same stuff applies.
Yeah. So those are some, I could come up with more. And really, if you have to choose what to listen to next, please go back to April 27th, 2018, and listen to the episode with Joanna Platt about emotional constipation.
It is the most relevant to what we just talked about.
Incredibly relevant.
The next level. Once you accept your feelings, now let's actually process them.
How do we process them? What are the signs that we are emotionally constipated? We kind of touched on them, but we organized them better in that conversation. So, I guess I'll just end by saying it's also okay to be in a good mood. It's okay to be positive. It is okay to be optimistic. It is okay to look on the bright side of things. If you are constantly negative and constantly pessimistic, that's not serving you. Being optimistic, being hopeful is a beautiful thing. Hope is one of the best things. Glennon Doyle said, and I think this is a mic drop thing. Wish I remembered the whole quote. But the end of the quote is, no feeling is final except hope. And I think that is one of the...
That's good.
I would get a tattoo of that if I had tattoos. I might not. Who knows? I'm still open to the idea. So it's okay and it's perfectly awesome. I want you to be optimistic that your life can change. I want you to expect that things can get better. I want you to assume that just because I feel like this today or even this hour doesn't mean I can't feel different in 2 hours. It just means that you have to, everything you feel has to be okay, and that you are normal for feeling anything that you feel. And you can be optimistic and positive while honoring the complexity of how you feel. That's what good positivity is.
That's what I feel like the title should have been, but that's a paragraph, so we couldn't make it that.
Right.
Which is why it is what it is.
Positive thinking is mostly BS. At least the positive thinking that, we all kind of, the new age positivity that we don't like. Well, exactly. Okay.
So I also do want to say, I know we talked about what to do if you're a little bit chronically negative or you have been in a rut for a little while or you just feel really stuck. And we did talk about possibly having a third party come in to help jolt you out of that.
Hello, third parties. Here we are.
That's a part of what we do in coaching.
Yeah, this is a huge... someone got on the phone with me, someone who should have known, and I don't blame her, but should have known that we're not just career coaches. She was like, oh, I know, I guess I can't talk about that because it's not about my career. I was like, hold up. No. You are wrong. No, it just looks like we're career coaches. That's the reason you come to us if you're struggling with honestly, you can come to us for any reason. But that's usually that's how people find us, is that they're stuck. They want to figure out their passion in life. That's why they come to us. But what we focus on, once you're here, you'll be surprised, or maybe not after this conversation. It has so much more to do with how you feel, who you want to be, what your values are, what's keeping you stuck. It's all of this internal stuff. And one of the biggest, I would say, through lines of what we do with our clients is this: helping them become people who can access their feelings, who can process them in a healthy way, who don't judge themselves, who aren't beating themselves up, or other people who come out feeling like, oh my God, this is what healthy emotions feel like.
Right. And then passion and purpose is almost a byproduct of that process.
Yes, totally. So if you want to talk to us about it, You can
link in the episode description.
Clicking
the link and filling out the form does not commit you to coaching. It just means you get to talk to one of us. And
I don't want to commit to someone I only know through a website. I need to talk to you first.
We want to make sure it's a good fit in both directions.
Yeah. So if it feels like the right time, and there's never going to be a right time, but if it feels like
enough.
if you've been procrastinating for long enough and you're like, okay, this isn't changing, and I can't just process all of these feelings and on my own, then you will be amazed at the power of what actually speaking them out loud and having someone who's actually trained help you process them can do. Amazing. More progress in a month than you would probably make on your own in years, in my experience.
I hear that from my clients
on
all
both
the time.
sides of the equation. I have experienced that to be true. So, okay, we will see you, on YouTube. You won't see us again for another month because we only do actual videos once a month on side chats. But
you'll hear us again.
You'll hear us again
Tuesday.
It's an old blog from me.
All right.
Yeah. And then I will say that next Friday, we're going to have a very special episode. It's an expert interview, but we are the experts because we've been doing this podcast for a year now. It is our year anniversary. And so we're going to have our friend Britt come on, and she's going to basically play 20 questions. She's compiled a whole list of things she's been dying to ask us, and she's going to turn the tables on us. So if you're not tired of hearing us talk, there's plenty more here for you. All right. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.